Do yourself a favor if you want to be freaked out. Google Weird Al back tattoo.
Wow.
Went to college for 4 years, got my degree in architecture, and as you can tell, that worked out great. It's not a stretch for me to ever act dorky. That's something I kept close to my heart.
I'm Rachel Martin, and this is Wildcard, the game where cards control the conversation. Each week, my guest chooses questions at random from a deck of cards. My guest this week is Weird Al Yankovic. So I usually have to finish a conversation with a guest before I can draw some big conclusion, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say this about Weird Al. I think that more than the perfect rhyming scheme, more than the most ridiculous pun, more than music itself, what Weird Al loves most in the world is making people happy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he fell hard for the accordion as a kid and realized a few years later he was really good at making up fake lyrics to real songs. And this was his ticket to fame and fortune. But I don't think so. His art is too self-effacing to be about ego. When performing, Weird Al is the spiritual manifestation of every dorky kid who never fit in, now finally getting their moment. Not by trying to fit into someone else's idea of cool, but by leaning into every single thing that makes them weird. And that is a beautiful and generous thing. 46 years after his first big hit, My Bologna, came out, Weird Al is still at it. His new tour is called Bigger and Weirder, and it kicks off in June. It is my pleasure to welcome Weird Al to Wildcard.
Thank you. That was so lovely.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to get to do this with you. Thank you for being game.
Okay, let's get deep. Peel back the onion. Peel back the layers.
Let's go. First round. Okay.
Number three.
Number three. Okay, here we go. What's an experience from your childhood when you realized your parents were only human?
My parents were great. They loved me beyond all measure, but they had a few, I guess, faults, for want of a better word. They didn't know how to give bad news.
Oh.
My mother in particular, she just kind of walked on eggshells around me. She didn't want to upset me. And I remember one particular incident in college. When I was 5 years old, I got a dog named China, and I loved the dog, and it was my constant companion all through my childhood. And then I went to college, and then
I feel like I know where this is going, but keep going. Yeah, keep going.
So I came home for Christmas break, and I greeted my parents. I said, "Where's China?" And they kind of looked at each other, and they said, "Oh, he's buried in the backyard." I'm like, when did this happen? Months ago, but you're in college. We didn't want to bother you. You're busy. We didn't want to disturb you. So I took that in, and I, grieved. But it kind of wrecked me because every other time I came home from college, I was expecting to go, "Hey, Mom, where's Dad?"
We didn't want to upset you.
We didn't know. You're busy.
I didn't want to inconvenience you. Death. So that's very sad, but I also get it. It's also sort of generational, right? Like people of that generation were just like, oh, I don't, it's hard sometimes to talk about hard things, and it's very real. Parents not wanting to traumatize their kid with bad news.
Well, since you said that, I should say the flip side of the coin, because my dad was sort of the other. My dad would get into arguments with my mother over how she was being too soft on me and had to toughen me up a little bit. And when my mother's mother died, I could hear them talking in the other room, and I didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, my dad bursts into my room and says, "Your grandmother's dead."
You
okay.
get it one way or the other. You either don't get the news or it comes out in this other way.
Right. You just never know.
Okay, 3 more cards. 1, 2, or 3?
Number 3, please, Rachel.
Number 3. Feeling the 3s. What's something someone told you that changed your trajectory?
I'm going to have to go with Clifton Nordgaard, my guidance counselor in high school. And in 9th grade, I started high school early because I skipped a couple of grades. So I was 12 years old, and I had this guidance counselor that was going to help me decide what I was going to do with my life. And he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I think I'd like to be a writer and or artist for Mad Magazine." And he said, Yeah, no, that's not really a job for an adult. You're good at drafting. You like math. You probably are good at design. Why don't you be an architect? And I said, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I guess I'll be an architect. And so I went to college. I went to college for 4 years, got my degree in architecture. And as you can tell, that worked out great.
Was there, I mean, you did a talent show, right, when you were in college? And
Sure,
that's when,
sure.
I mean, you probably did many. But in the research I read, there was one particular one you did with a friend. And you're like, oh, I'm getting great audience feedback here. Maybe I'm onto something.
Yeah, that happened. They call it wasn't well, I guess it was a talent show of sorts. They called it a coffee house. So it was like every Thursday night on the student union in our college. It was basically a open mic, basically.
Yeah.
And 95% of the acts were guys with acoustic guitar playing Dan Fogelberg covers. Just very mellow, laid back Southern California kind of vibe. And then I get up on stage with my accordion. My friend played the bongos, and we just cut loose and we're just insane. And people just kind of woke up and like, what's going on here? And that kind of reaction, that positive gratification,
Yeah.
just really, spun my head around.
There's, I understand, a plaque in the bathroom of your college where you actually wrote My Bologna, which was the knockoff of My Sharona.
Yeah, that is true. I recorded My Bologna in the bathroom across the hall from my campus radio station. We ran lines from the production room into the bathroom because, as you know, bathrooms have acoustically perfect tiled walls and they have that
That's
nice
why we
warm
all sing in
reverb
them,
sound.
yes.
Exactly. So I recorded my first single literally in the bathroom, and years later they put a plaque on that bathroom just saying that here's where it all happened. If you go there to this day, there's a picture of me next to the urinal.
All the Grammys pale in comparison to that particular honor.
That is a high point, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. 3 more cards. Still in
Oh, boy.
memories.
I will take number 3, please, Rachel.
What period of your life do you often daydream about?
I would say my daughter's childhood. She's 22 now. She's just about to graduate from college. And I have to be careful talking about this because I think so much about it. Like whenever old pictures come up on your phone or your desktop, and you go, oh, remember when you were 8? Remember when you were 5? And you go, yeah, Dad, I remember. I mean, we still love you now. We love you now, but
that person's gone, and you dug her. Yeah.
My wife and I talk about this all the time. It would be great. My daughter's name is Nina, and we always used to say it would be great if we had a Nina at every age living in our house, just 1 through 22 Ninas, because each one is so special and so beautiful and lovely, and something just unique about every age. And
true.
It's such a sense of loss when that person becomes something else, equally good, but you're missing the other person. You know what I mean?
Did you always know you wanted to be a parent?
I don't know that I did. If I'm being totally honest, I hope she doesn't hear this.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I mean, I always thought it was a possibility, but it wasn't like I was in my 20s going, "Oh, I can't wait to have a kid."
Yeah.
You know.
You had a lot going on.
But it's sort of like I've always been happy with my life. I've never been like lonely or felt something was missing. And I married late in life, so I went through up to my late 30s being a single man and being very happy. And then I got married, and my life got exponentially better. And then I had a child, and my life got even better yet. So it's all been very positive for me, and I certainly wouldn't have it any other way.
So let's push back and talk a little bit about your upcoming tour.
Oh, okay.
You clearly still get a lot out of that particular experience.
Oh, yeah. It's my favorite part of what I do. I mean, writing is a pain. Yeah, I mean, writing is not really fun for me. It's kind of a pain. And recording is okay, but it's just long and drawn out. And performing live is the only time when I get that instant feedback. And it's just, it's the dopamine rush. It's just something that I never get tired of. It's exhausting, but it never gets old.
I imagine you get sort of inundated with people who come up and want to share how you have affected them and what your music has meant to them and what you yourself have meant to them as this, inherently, tell me if I'm wrong, but an inherently optimistic person. And I guess I just wonder if there are any of those people who you carry with you in your mind.
Oh, all the time. I mean, I don't take any of that for granted. It means so much to me to have that kind of support from my fans, and I've just gotten so much love from fans over the years. I meet them at shows, I meet them at conventions, I meet them when I'm shopping for groceries, and they tell me these amazing stories. Some tell me how I've changed their lives, or stopped them from committing suicide in a couple instances. Whoa. Yeah, it gets pretty heavy. And I've seen so many people with Weird Al tattoos. Which kind of blows my mind. Do yourself a favor if you want to be freaked out. Google Weird Al back tattoo.
Wow.
I met this one guy after a show. His entire back was my face, like bigger than life-sized.
How do you take all that on? Because that's a lot, especially your.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, something like that is, kind of half scary and half wonderful. Because, some people do get obsessive, but it's something that I carry with me. It's something that, it does feel like a bit of a responsibility now because, like, I've got these people that kind of look up to me. And what's also nice is that, what I've been trying to project through my entire life and my career is that it's okay to be weird. When I took on the name Weird Al, that was sort of an empowering thing. And a lot of kids have also come up to me and said how important it was to have be represented in that way. And because, in school, they might be considered a freak or a dork or a weirdo or somebody who just didn't fit in. And to have somebody like me to look up to that, basically saying it's okay to be that way.
Yeah.
That's meant a lot to some people.
3 new cards. 1, 2, or 3.
Oh, gosh. I'd like number 3, please, Rachel.
You silly man. 3 is your favorite.
Oh, I'm excited already.
When do you feel most like an outsider?
I spent most of my early career actually being an outsider, which actually served me well because as a parodist / satirist, you kind of don't, you want to be like the guy on the outside of the circle poking fun at the people on the inside of the circle. So that served me well. And it became a little awkward a few years later when I actually got a little famous and started showing up at some of the award shows and parties as the people that I was making fun of.
Right, you were in.
I was in. I was an insider, and I still managed to keep doing what I was doing, but it was a whole different kind of dynamic. But that's not to say that I ever lost my imposter syndrome, because I've kept that with me my entire life. So part of me certainly does feel like an outsider. On the last tour that I did, I played Carnegie Hall for the first time, and it was something
very
that
insidery.
Very insidery, and it was always kind of on my bucket list, and I was nervous about it the entire tour. I mean, every show that I did was like, oh, Carnegie Hall's coming up in 4 weeks, Carnegie Hall, 3 weeks from Carnegie Hall, and if we finally got there, and I kept telling myself, look, you've done 3 months of shows. This is just another show. It's just another show. And then I walk inside Carnegie Hall, and there's floor-to-ceiling pictures of Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland and the Beatles. And I'm thinking, I don't belong here. What am I doing?
I mean, that's huge.
The place that Bugs Bunny talks about in the old cartoons. Like,
There you go.
It's got history.
There you go. Okay. 3 more cards. 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, I'm gonna go with 1, Rachel.
Ow, mixing it up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is interesting. Was there a moment when the career you wanted felt in reach? Presumably before Carnegie Hall.
I guess I'll answer this by telling you the moment that I kind of decided I should be Weird Al full time. When I got my record deal, it was a couple of years out of college. And it was I signed it in 1982. And, generally, especially if, the artist is not already a known entity, record labels don't give you a big bucket of money up front. They sign you to this draconian deal, and you just go on with your life. So I was still working literally for minimum wage in a mailroom, and my first album had come out. part of my job as a mail sorter was to go to the post office every morning and pick up the mail. And it's like a giant mailbag. And sticking out of the top of the mailbag was the latest issue of Billboard magazine. So I opened it up to the Hot 100 chart, and there I am on the charts. I am on the Billboard charts. And I thought, I should probably give notice at work and maybe get serious about this Weird Al thing.
That's incredible. No one had given you a phone call to give you a heads up that was going to go down?
No. It's kind of funny because part of my job working I also did deliveries, and I would show up like at Epic Records and places around town, dropping things off. And I remember at Epic Records, they had a party for me when my first album went gold, and there were people hanging around going, "Isn't that the mailroom guy? What's he doing?"
Do you remember what you felt, though, when you saw your name on the Billboard 100?
It was crazy. I mean, I didn't, I signed the record deal, but part of me just never thought that I would be able to make it. I thought the whole thing was a lark, and I didn't, the Billboard magazine meant so much to me because, when I was in college radio, we had the charts taped on the walls, and it was sort of like, the radio person's Bible. And the fact that, I would daydream about, maybe one day I'll be on the Billboard charts, never really thinking that was an option. So when it finally happened for the first time, it was amazing to me. This wasn't the first time I was mentioned in Billboard, though. I remember the very first time Billboard mentioned me was like that I had signed with Capitol Records. They referred to me as Weird Owl, OWL Yankovic. Yes, I was like, close enough. I'll take it. That's fine.
So, I mean, even then, as you saw the career you wanted start to materialize, you were like, maybe I get to do this for, I don't know, 5-10 years, let alone a lifetime?
At the most, because, I mean, that's one of the reasons it was so difficult to get signed to a record deal in the first place, is because I did what was considered at the time, and probably still is, as novelty music. And historically, novelty artists don't have a long career. In fact, they're lucky to have a single hit. They're lucky to be a one-hit wonder. So nobody wanted a one-hit wonder. They wanted somebody that was going to be around for years and years and years, which, I mean, that's the irony of my life. So it was just difficult to get my foot in the door. But I'm glad I'm still here.
What did your parents make of that when you were like, I'm quitting the mailroom, I'm really going to give this a go? I mean, by that point, had they just like surrendered?
I have to say they were always very supportive. They weren't disappointed when I graduated from college with a degree in architecture and decided I'm not going to be an architect. I mean, that was like one of the best gifts my parents ever gave me, was just allowing me to just be happy in my life. And they weren't career-minded. They were like, they were lower middle class. They didn't, have a lot going on that way. But, I mean, they were happy. They lived well within their means. And they were just happy when I was happy.
I'm just trying to, the portrait you've painted of your parents, tell me if I'm wrong, was quite, at least emotionally conservative kind of folks. Maybe not so into popular culture of the time. I mean, when they saw you do your thing, like with the bongos and the accordion and the weird lyrics, were they just like, whatever you want, Al, as long as you're happy? Or was there part of them was like, we made this kid? Like, how did this kid come from us?
The only thing my mom said was, stay out of Hollywood, Al. There are evil people there.
Oh.
And she's not wrong, but I did, in fact, go to Hollywood quite a few times.
And live to tell the tale.
Yes.
Okay, we are moving into round 3, otherwise known as the beliefs round. 1, 2, or 3?
Let's go back with number 3, please.
Okay. What's something you no longer take for granted?
Ooh. Okay, well, because nothing comes immediately to mind, I'm going to flip this. And while you're talking, I'm going to stare and act as if I'm actively listening when I'm actually going to be thinking of a good answer.
That's exactly what you should do.
Okay.
Okay, what's something I no longer take for granted? Okay, this I will say. Listeners to the show know I talk about my parents a lot, and my mom in particular, who died a long time ago. But I do remember
when she was sick, she had cancer for a long time. And when she was diagnosed, I was in my early 30s. I was working for ABC News, and I could walk from the bureau back to my apartment every day. And so on that commute, I would always talk to her on the phone. And I remember in those conversations, she was physically deteriorating more and more. And along with just the awareness of mortality and feeling preemptive grief around her death, which we all knew was coming, in just this very small way, she just made me appreciate my body and that it wasn't always going to work. Like, she had neuropathy on her feet. So it's like nerve damage that a lot of cancer patients get from all the various treatments. And her feet would be hurting her so much. And I just remember feeling so lucky in a way a early 30-something person doesn't often feel lucky to be able to walk and not be in pain, And I, in those conversations, remember thinking, don't take this for granted. Don't take it for granted. Not just your life. Yes, don't take your life for granted. But the small act of being able to move yourself with your feet and to not be in pain. And my body is working. And isn't that a blessing? And it's just not always going to be thus. And so I still feel, there are parts that feel a little stiffer than they used to, but I still feel very grateful that my body will do the things that it was designed to do.
That answer is so much better than mine. So,
shoot. Well, you still got to go. It doesn't have to be my mom was dying and then I recognized.
No, see, you trumped me right off the bat. Like, how do I follow that? I was going to say, and I guess I still will.
Yes.
Anonymity. Because
that's a big one. That's a big one.
I had that up until I was around age 24 and Eat It came out. And after that happened, I was overnight somebody that got recognized on the street.
Yeah.
Which was good and bad. I mean, it was certainly novel for me because that had never happened before. And I didn't dislike it, but I remember my posture changed because at my heart, I am kind of a shy, withdrawn person. And it was just odd to have everybody looking at me everywhere I went. It was a whole different way of life.
Totally.
And I think I started like hunching over a bit, like, don't look at me.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm like a walking cartoon character. And I got a brief reprieve when I had my LASIK eye surgery and I shaved my facial hair. So all of a sudden I wasn't like the guy with the mustache and the glasses anymore. Yeah. And it was weird because I was used to people looking at me and all of a sudden they weren't until they got used to the new look. So it's just a brief window of time where it was like, oh, this again. Yeah, I remember this.
So you've come to make peace with the lack of anonymity and it's not as unsettling as it used to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I just wasn't used to it or maybe I got more of it, but the 80s seemed to be a time when like, I couldn't escape it. And now I've got a real comfortable level of fame. I'm very okay with it. I actually enjoy it. I don't have people going through my garbage cans at night, but like
Good.
I'll run into somebody on the street and they'll say, hey, I love your work. And that's all I want to hear. That's great.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. 2. 3 new cards. 1, 2, or 3.
Let's go back with number 3.
Number 3. Feeling good on number 3. How do you see yourself differently as you age?
Oh, it's an odd thing because I was thinking about this a while ago. I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother was, I just thought she was the oldest person in the world. She was like Methuselah. She was just this old,
like 53?
old person. She was like, maybe the age I am now, So my whole attitude about it has changed. Like, 65 isn't that old. I know I am getting the AARP stuff in my email box, but I've got 60 or 70 more years, right? I mean, come on. So, the old cliche is true. I mean, you don't age that much on the inside if you're lucky. I still feel like a goofy teenager, but all of a sudden my hair is getting thinner and grayer, and things are happening with my body that I'm not thrilled about. but I'm still doing what I do, and I still feel the way that I feel. And as the cliche goes, age is just a number.
Does it get harder as you age to tap into the mindset of that dorky 15-year-old kid in the corner? Or even just the joy of like the random 15-year-old kid hanging out with his friends?
I'm pretty in touch with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to. It's not a stretch for me to ever act dorky. That's something I kept close to my heart. So yeah, I mean, I think I have the same basic sense of humor that I did way back then. I don't express myself. When I first started out, I kind of felt like I needed to live up to the nickname Weird Al, and I was maybe weirder than I needed to be. And I look at old interviews myself that I did in the 80s, and I just cringe, like, oh, who is this person?
You felt like
just
that person was
obnoxious.
performing Weird Al.
Yeah, very, very performative. So I've been, since then I've been trying to let my inner weirdness shine out, and don't push it, don't force it. Like, I'm weird enough as it is.
Yeah, but I imagine you felt some kind of pressure. Like people were responding to the character, and so you're like, when do I lean into that, and when do I step away from it? And that's
I don't think people today, approach me in the same way or think that I'm bouncing off the walls 24 hours a day. I think people realize, I am who I am, and Weird Al is almost ironic because I'm like one of the more normal people in showbiz, I think.
We end the show the same way every time, with a trip in our memory time machine.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Al.
Okay.
So, here we go. You go back to your past. You pick one moment. It's a moment you wouldn't change anything about. It's just a moment you want to linger in a little longer.
Okay.
What moment do you choose?
Is it shallow to pick something career related?
It is
career
not.
related.
It is
okay.
not.
Well, this has got family too. So, okay, this is like a perfect storm. So this will work. This would be in 2014. My last album's A Mandatory Fun had just come out, and it was the end of the first week, and it was doing really, really, really well. And in fact, it was battling with Jason Mraz to be the #1 album on the Billboard charts. And as I explained, the Billboard charts mean a whole lot to me. And it was just blowing my mind the whole week, thinking that like I was, I really even had a shot at being #1 on the charts, because literally no comedy album had ever in history debuted at #1 on the charts. And the last person to even reach #1 was like Alan Sherman, like 50 years prior to that. So it was kind of crazy what was happening. And I was at a taping of the show At Midnight, the late night game show, and I was in the green room just about ready to go on, and my manager was there. He said, "Would you come with me? There's something we want to show you in the green room." And I walked into the green room, and my wife and my daughter and my in-laws were there, and they had a huge banner, #1. And a cake, and my daughter had made a big drawing for me, and it was just like this, it's like everything good in my life happening at the same time. So my family and my career, and it just hard to beat that. That was just a real moment for me. I still get a little choked up about it, even thinking about it.
That's a lovely memory. Thank you for sharing that. Weird Al Yankovic will be on tour this summer. Don't miss it. Weird Al, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Rachel.